Welcome to Coleman Report Live. I'm Bob Coleman, and we're talking Main Street and the small business lenders who help it grow and those who cover small business lenders. John, good to see you. As always, wealth of information. John's with American Banker, and we have a ton of stuff to go over. Lance, are you ever going to solve your gremlin technology issues?
I don't know, Bob. Like I said, we were talking before the show. I'm blinded on my laptop right now.
Well, that's we'll work on that. And Katie, good to see you as always. And Joseph's back on the grid. His power went out, so we continue to have challenges. Hey, we appreciate all of your support. As a recap, download these certificates, and they help you answer the question of training. John's going to talk to us a lot about what's going on in Congress, but the first basic question, because that came up this morning, we were talking about this, is who approves the extension? Does it have to be congressional? Is it an SBA regulation? Does the FDIC weigh in, or does the Treasury Secretary say we can do it? 80%. John, our people are pretty smart.
They are.
And certainly SBA and Treasury will have input on this, but Congress is the ultimate decision maker in this situation.
All right, John. I signed the letter, and a bunch of our audience signed the letter. What's going to happen? Lance, go ahead and say something. I cut you off. John, address it.
I was just going to say, and John, you know this. They change rules on a daily basis, so they've been changing the rules last week, this week, and, you know, we have a deadline looming in 3 weeks. So new borrowers, for instance, the Schedule C and changes to Schedule C borrowers and the farmers, you know, that's just being implemented, and they can't apply right now, I would assume, but the challenge is they're changing the rules and increasing the availability, and the deadline's, 3 weeks away?
Deadline's March 30th, but I have a question, and maybe you can help with this, Lance. Has there been any improvement on the error codes? Because if that's still an issue, then the effective deadline is really closer than March 31st.
John, we've seen some improvement on the hold codes. You know, we do a poll question periodically on the Coleman Report Live. We're seeing some improvement, but it hasn't went away. I mean, Kate, correct me if I'm wrong, you know, it looked like about half of the people had seen some improvement, the other half had not, in terms of being able to you know, clear or fix the hold code.
Joseph, can you put that poll together on the fly?
Yeah.
Okay, we'll ask them. Well, Joseph's putting that together. Let's go back to John. John, what's going on in Washington? What do you think is going to happen?
Senator Cardin, who is the new chairman of the Small Business and Entrepreneurship Committee, had a press conference yesterday. I was able to listen in, and
Nice.
he said that he wants to hold a hearing this month. I'm going to assume it's going to be very soon, perhaps next week. But I don't think it's been, as of yesterday, it had not been scheduled. And he said he'll discuss, number one, the issue of, I call it retroactivity, whether this formula can be applied to loans that may have been issued on February 20th. People who thought they were really fortunate to get their loans, but then found out 2 days later they could have perhaps had a lot more money. So there's that issue. And then the other issue is obviously timing. Can the program be extended? He mentioned that the way it was designed, you know, the state wasn't just, you know, picked at random. They they had a pot of money, and this is March 31st is when they figured, and through estimates and modeling, that the money would be gone. I'm not sure the money will be gone. A lot of bankers I've talked to say there'll be money left, perhaps substantial money's left. And in any event, if there's need left, then perhaps the money can be addressed also by Congress. But that will be discussed as well. He didn't really make any commitments one way or the other about whether he would push for it, but at least it will be discussed and they can get a sense of whether they have the support.
John, there's two dates that have been bandied about. Number one is extended to June 30th.
Mm-hmm.
I know some trade associations balked on that and said, wait a minute, we need to go to the end of the year. What is your sense?
It's interesting because you look at the constituencies, there's another issue here, and that is the PPPLF. Because if they don't extend the PPPLF, you could extend.
What is that?
The PPPLF is the loan facility.
Okay.
That allows, I think everybody, it allows the banks, the lenders, I should say, to borrow at a very attractive rate and then lend this out on PPP loans, which are also at a very attractive rate. So it gives them some room to make a profit. And without that fund, this is a much less workable program. So there's a lot of moving targets. Having said that, the Treasury, the Biden administration could easily make the decision to extend that fund. So I suspect if
so Treasury could do it.
Yes, the fund.
The fund. Yes. I'm sorry.
The program itself, the lending authority, that's Congress.
Okay.
So the issues are out there, and we'll just have to wait and see. Unfortunately, it seems like it's going to come down to the 11th hour again.
John, what is happening with I just blanked. And it was a great question as well, I could tell you.
They're all great.
Joseph, do you have that poll up? There you go. John, ask and we shall deliver the answer here. There you go, 2/3, John.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting to see that because one lender I talked to, one SBA lender, said that barring an extension, he would think about stopping the acceptance of new applications on or about March 25th to ensure that everything could get through, that they could get everything through. They don't want to run the risk of accepting applications and them being caught sort of midway and
No, absolutely. My brilliant question has come back to me, John. What is going on with legislation and anything important in that legislation that's new to lenders or the lenders need to be aware of? We're assuming the Senate's going to pass it in some format and the president will sign it.
Are you talking about legislation?
The $1.9 trillion stimulus.
Oh, well, there's yes. I mean, it was. I think just yesterday passed in the House.
Right.
So, the question, can it be passed in the Senate? It's looking more and more like that because they're one by one. They're sort of solving the sticking points or getting past them. So it looks like that's there, but the big things with PPP are outside of that legislation because, and I'll tell you why. And I'm no expert, but at least this was explained to me yesterday during the call. That bill is being considered and worked through the reconciliation process, and I guess by virtue of the parliamentary rules, issues like extending the PPP deadline, allowing loans to be retroactively, the formula rather, to be retroactively applied, cannot be considered.
Okay, that's
reconciliation.
Okay,
so
that's sort of what I was asking, or that's what I was implying, and will that some of those issues be resolved then?
They can't be resolved that way, and Senator Cardin said that they'll either have to do a standalone bill or find some other means of getting them passed.
Katie, we had a lot of information being dumped at us. What's the important thing for takeaways?
Yeah, so I've split it up into several slides, but really there's three major aspects to the IFR that was published last night. The first one being that it provides more details about that Schedule C calculation. Most of that we already knew with the early information that we received earlier this week. Nothing really surprising there. The other two portions are allowing fraud, or sorry, I shouldn't say fraud, allowing felony convictions that are not fraud to get those loans, and also allowing student debt that's been defaulted on.
Explain that student debt a little bit more, Katie or Lance. What exactly is being done with that provision?
Yeah,
Well,
that one's
primarily
pretty much, oh, okay, yeah. That one's pretty much just being removed. Before they had mentioned that basically any federal delinquencies or defaults would mean that the borrower could not get a PPP loan. Now they're saying that if you have defaulted on student debt within the past 7 years or are delinquent, you will still be able to get a PPP loan. Now that restriction still is only applying to federal student debt. That's not going to apply to other federal delinquencies or other federal debt.
John, any idea why we picked 7 years and not 12 years?
I have no, Congress is in many cases a mystery to me. And
But you're not going to tell us the inner workings of what Congress is thinking, Lance? Any ideas 7 years and not 12?
I have no idea, Bob, and I don't know why they picked student debt as opposed to other federal debt. Probably because it's more prevalent in America than, but it's obvious if you defaulted on an SBA loan, you're not going to get a PPP.
Not going to be eligible.
If you've defaulted on a USDA B&I loan or an FHA loan, it's probably going to result in it will result in not getting a PPP loan. But I do think, there are a lot of people in America who have defaulted on student debt who operate businesses that now can potentially get a PPP loan.
Well, let's follow up on that, Lance. How many borrowers did you personally experience that last year? Is it a handful, quite a few?
Well, Bob, I didn't experience it because we shut that down. If somebody, we asked the question, you defaulted on federal debt or you're delinquent on federal debt. So it's hard to know the exact numbers, but I think Congress looked at it and said, hey, there's a ton of student loan default, and a lot of those are legitimate business owners. So let's take that out of the equation.
Katie, any idea how many companies we're talking about? I don't know.
I don't know the number off the top of my head, but just kind of adding to what Lance was just saying, something else that they mentioned in the IFR is that this student debt is actually affecting minority groups more than others, and this is part of their continued efforts to make sure that those groups don't get cut out of the program as well.
John, how important is this issue?
I think it's very important. It's relatively small block of people when you think of the whole country, but it's an issue of access. Just like Katie was talking about, they're taking away sticking points to small businesses getting these loans.
And remember, the purpose of this program is to have employers keep their employees paid. This
Right.
doesn't go into the pocket of the borrowers. It's, okay, I'm an entrepreneur and I've had some financial problems, but I'm working it out, and I'm going to take this money to pay my people. That's the whole purpose of the program. So.
Can I mention something that's
Of course.
a little bit related? I believe, if I'm not mistaken, and please tell me if I am, that there is the regulations are in the works that would allow borrowers to refinance existing, I guess it would be SBA, existing SBA debt through the 504 program. And that is
Yeah.
never, what I'm told is that has been allowed in extremely rare cases prior to this, but now it will become a more general practice. So, access, if we're giving access there, I guess the thought is it's only fair to provide wider access elsewhere.
Lance, go ahead, because I know you've been involved with this intimately.
Your 504 programs are anxiously awaiting that loosening of that regulation. You could refinance SBA debt with a 504 loan previously, but there were a number of hoops you had to jump through to be able to do it. And as John has said, the legislation that's being proposed, it's my understanding that it's going to take those away and make it relatively easy to refinance an existing SBA 7A loan with a new 504 loan. Long-term benefit of the business, lower payments, lower interest rates, better cash flow.
Yeah,
Right.
and John, the proceeds have to go into the business, but and the lender's going to have to verify that. But what it does, it converts the equity in that building to the cash is able to go back into the business. So
Yes.
that's there, and the people I talk to, that's going to be huge, because you have a lot of entrepreneurs who are real estate rich and cash poor. Katie, what is all this? This came out this morning as well?
Yeah, or I believe it was published actually last night on the SBA website. And I'm obviously not going to go through all of these in details. Just know that they are there. There's the new form for the Schedule C borrowers and first and second draw and things like that. If you want to be able to use the new calculations using that line 7, you're going to have to use these forms. You can't use a regular form.
And we have all those forms attached, and of course they're up. You can Google them as well. When are the forms mandatory to be used, Katie?
You can start using them now.
No, but when are they mandatory? When do we have to start using them?
Well, it depends if you want to use that line 7. If you really want to use that, you have to use these forms.
Great. Let's go to some questions. We got a bunch of questions. Real quick, Jim says, I haven't heard this one before. I think it's a good question. Jim's saying, hey, we have borrowers who have the payment, SBA's got the payment of $9,000. Lance, what happens if that payment is over $9,000? Do we have a late fee on it? Let's assume the payment's $10,000. SBA cuts the check for $9,000, and now we have $1,000 delinquent. What do we do, Lance?
The borrower is responsible for making the additional $1,000 payment. So my feelings are a late charge, if they do not pay that timely, would be appropriate.
Is it late on the $1,000 or late on the full $10,000?
I don't know the answer to that question, Bob, but there are a number of clients I've had to go through my portfolio and reach out to those clients who have payments larger than $9,000 to make sure they understand, say their payment's $11,500. I reached out to the customer and said, SBA is going to kindly pay $9,000 worth of your payment. You've got to pay the other $2,500. So, the payment would still technically be late if that additional payment amount is not paid.
Sandy wants to know when are the new applications forms required? We talked about that. Are they, Katie, do you know if they're fillable PDFs?
I believe they are. I haven't really clicked into them too much, but I believe they are fillable.
Yeah, and as an aside, I think we've all had that. Remember, be sure and save an information before you move on. We've all lost information. Jim wants to know, with respect to Lance property valuations, do we have a special disaster declaration, equity requirements for special use properties? Are we still going to be acting on that, or do we go the full 90%? Special use is what, 75%, but can we go up to 90%? What are the numbers on that, Lance? Do we know?
Well, is he referring to SBA 504 loans, or 7A loans?
Refinance, yeah, that's what I'm asking.
And the disaster declaration rules apply to SBA disaster loans, typically not to the 7A and 504. So
I guess my question is, single use, we're always saying you've got to have at least 15% equity. when I read those, if we have a single-use property that we're refinancing, do we go 85% equity or we go 90%?
It appears that with the new rules, Bob, you can go 90%.
Yeah, I didn't see it. That's SBA may clarify.
Jim asked a great question because you've got owner-occupied real estate special purpose, owner-occupied real estate general purpose, and the equity requirements are different of those. And I did not see where it addressed that. Now, I need to go back and look at the IR to make sure, but I didn't see where it addressed it. It appeared that you could go 90%.
Brian says, hey, make sure you emphasize the fact that if we have not reported the PPP loan, the second draw on the 1502, we can go back and increase it for those Schedule C filers. Correct, Lance? Katie?
That's
Yeah,
right.
it's essentially removing it and reapplying. They're not really calling it a increase because you're technically not supposed to increase it for that purpose. But if it hasn't been issued for the 1502, you can certainly cancel it and start over.
Very good. I got all these and all these. We'll put these up on PPP Answer Desk. We thank you very much for that. Lance, I know you've been spending some time on that. How are the questions?
Very good questions, sometimes very difficult questions, Bob, but I'm trying to give the best quality response possible.
Katie, and the new IFR, we will be posting that, and we'll also be posting all the new forms on that website, correct?
Yes.
We'll be doing that. Very good. Anything else you want to add, John? I want to make sure I got all your talking points in that you wanted to discuss with us.
No, I think we've covered everything I wanted to talk about.
Oh, very good. Hey, I really appreciate your time. I know you're busy, and I know the you have a lot of work covering what's going on. So we appreciate it as an industry, and we certainly appreciate you taking your time to give us your insight of what you're doing. Lance, let's solve your computer problems. And Katie, it's good to see another clear day in Seattle.
This time it's actually real. It is a clear day.
It is real. Okay. Thank you for joining us today for Coleman Report Live and for supporting America's Main Street, one entrepreneur at a time.
Have a great day.